We got him back. We got him back. We are in full
Finally.
effect. We're in full effect, man. We're finally in full effect. And ladies and gentlemen, this is what I was trying to get to you guys before some things happen. Let me just say this real quick. If you know anything about professional wrestling and what's happening in professional wrestling, this man right here is at the epic center of just about everything that's going on. Okay, first and foremost, there's a guy who used to run around here in Georgia who is known as UI Nation, who right now in WWE is the Intercontinental Champion, known as Apollo Crews. On top of that, if you know about wrestling news that's been happening, you know that there's a guy who I met years ago by the name of Quinn Ojanaka who wrestles as Moose, who just recently signed a 2 year contract or 2 year contract extension with Impact Wrestling. And there's a little organization, not exactly so little, but up near the northeast of the United States that just keeps on trucking after a whole lot of years. And there's a guy who I know personally very well. When I first started wrestling in 2005, I won the Georgia Wrestling.TK Rookie of the Year. You know who won it in 2006? A guy who is the Ring of Honor Pure Champion, Jonathan Gresham. Now, what do all of these guys have in common? Besides the fact that maybe at one time or another, I just happened to be blessed to cross paths with them? Well, all you have to do is look at my guest. He is a legend in this business. WWF, WCW, AWA, New Japan, ECW. If there was wrestling there, he has been there. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to welcome the one, the only, Total Protection, Mr. Hughes, the trainer of champions. How are you, sir?
You got you got that right. Training champions, training superstars, brother. Any way you want to look at it is all legit. What you said was so true. I am the trainer of champions, trainer of superstars, train Moose, Nation, which is Apollo Crews, Jonathan Gresham, Kiera Hogan, Dexter Lomas. I mean, I can go on and on of all the stars that I've trained, and I tell you what, I'm proud of every last one of them.
Awesome, very awesome, very awesome. I happen to meet quite a few of those people, not just throughout wrestling, but I think the last time I met most of them all at once was before Antron Brewer, aka the Fireman, went to
Forgot to mention
WWE.
him too. Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. I wrestled at one of his fall brawls, and I was actually in the 10-man match with Moose, and I got a chance to meet Dexter Loomis and a lot of other people that you have trained throughout the years. So, first and foremost, definitely tell us what is the thing that persuaded Mr. Hughes to jump into the square circle?
Well, I got a book coming out pretty soon, autobiography of yours truly, Total Protection, Mr. Hughes, and it pretty much lays everything out. But I give you a little taste of what what caused me to want to get into business. I when I was a little bitty fella, my father used to watch it. My older brothers used to go to the matches with him. He wouldn't take us, me and my younger brothers, because we were too small to go back then because they smoked cigarettes in there back then, drink alcohol, the whole 9 yards. So he took the older siblings. But we used to watch it on television in Kansas City, Channel 41. And it came on Thursday night, 8 o'clock, live. And I remember watching a match between Harley Race and Rufus R. Jones, the Headbutton King. And I watched that match, and that match that I saw that night, that was that bug that came out of that wrestling TV and bit me, man. And ever since that time, I told myself, I said, when I grow up, that's what I want to do. I want to be a wrestler. And even though I got into sports, I was a three-sport All-American, wrestling, track, and football. I started my sports athletic career in Chicago in a park. My brother preacher, the oldest, Hughes, that's his name. Him and my older brother, they were already into sports. So I was just this young sloppy kid, and I saw them. It looked like it was fun to, do push-ups and pull-ups and run the, jingle bars, whatever you call them things. I forgot, it's been so long. But anyway, I had went up to my brother preacher and I was like, could you show me how to do push-ups and sit-ups? Just like y'all do, you understand? And he showed me how to do the push-ups, do the sit-ups, and run. And then when I got to grade school, I noticed they had, small old time weights in there, the ones on the string where you did the pull and all that. And,
Right.
and I started doing that stuff. And so it
Hmm.
wasn't for my brother preacher introduced me to how to work out in the park. I wouldn't even known how to do it.
Right, right. Awesome. Very awesome. Um, my first interaction with you, well, when I the first time I saw you wrestle in WCW, and you were wrestling as just the big cat around that time. And
Mhm.
the first being somebody who has grown to love professional wrestling since I was a kid, it always made me scratch my head because now did you go to school in college? Were you at Kansas State?
Right. I went to Kansas State. Yes, I did. I
Okay,
was at
and
a full scholarship there. Mhm.
was that what brought about the Big Cat name?
Exactly. Yeah, you kind of only want to figure that out. You never had to, ask me. Yeah, that's how I came up with my character. Um, so K State was the K State Wildcats, see, and so
Right.
I noticed that people that I trained with, Bob Geiger, which he's trained me, Lord rest in peace there, Lord rest his soul, but he had taught us to come up with a gimmick, some kind of character that would help catapult you in the wrestling business. And even though I came from Kansas State, I was like, well, wait a minute. The mascot was Willie the Wildcat. That's the mascot of Kansas State. So
Right.
when I got in the business, I said, well, I just call myself Curtis the Cat. Okay. And so I started off with Curtis the Cat Hughes. And then as time went on, I had a buddy of mine that I trained with, TC Carter. He lives down in Florida now, but he was in Kansas City training with us at the time. He did some things with WCW as well. But he had this furry thing, looked like a cat. It was like a furry thing, perfect
Uh,
gimmick for me. I mean, he asked me if I wanted it. I was like, of course. I didn't have no robe. I didn't have no. I mean, I had an old cheap jacket that I went to the ring with, but he had this cat gimmick. Matter of fact, it's sitting right there. That's it right there. I don't know if you can see it, but it's sitting right over there on the wall there. I
mm,
got a lot of memorabilia in my house, so that's the original big cat gimmick over there. I don't know if you can see it, but I'll try to turn so you can see it up there. But yes, that's the thing that he gave me, and so I started wearing that. And when I got my break in WCW, that's what they saw me in before I went to WCW. Of course, I was in the AWA. So when I left
right.
Kansas City, AWA had called Bob Geigel and said, "You got anybody you want to bring up?" And he told him about me and Big Steve Ray. And that's when I started going to AWA wearing that big cat gimmick, the furry thing.
Gotcha, gotcha. Now, I haven't had an opportunity to talk to a lot of people that have wrestled in the AWA, and strangely enough, it's as sad as it is. The AWA has been out of business almost 30 years, and it's
Yeah.
a shame that because it's been out of business so long, a lot of people don't really understand what it meant to pro wrestling for so many years. So having been in the AWA and jumping to WCW, because we always hear people talk about the difference between WCW and the WWF, which we'll get to a little later on. But can you tell me, having been in the AWA and WCW, what were the glaring differences between working for those two organizations?
Well, the AWA, they were pretty much on the last leg of the old school style of doing wrestling and doing shows and how the guys perform. And so that's the era I came up in with the old school style of wrestling, that's how I teach. And so it's a realistic the way you see guys perform in the ring. And that's what really got me interested in it because the way those guys perform. The difference from going from from AWA to WCW was not too much different. It was just a bigger company. They're a little more progressed as far as, what they did because they had a bigger crowd and they had more money in the bank with Ted Turner, you see, and so they had a lot of talent up there that they could use. They had Flair, they had Lex Luger, they had the Steiner brothers, they had Dusty Rhodes. I mean, they had a lot of big time names there at WCW. So it was a wide audience because AWA was pretty much going under due to when when NWA took over the licensing of wrestling, uh, NWA started pretty much, they were doing mostly in Kansas City. So a lot of stars came through Kansas City. You follow me so far? And so when Crockett Promotions bought NWA, they were coming to Kansas City and bringing their own boys and killing all the territories. So before, while Vince was going around buying all these territories and killing the freaking territory business, they, NWA slash Ted Turner was going, I'm sorry, when he sold it to the Crockett's, they were going around killing NWA, turning it into WCW. And so they killed Kansas City. And so everybody that pretty much was working for Kansas City had to find another job. And if you were good enough, then whoever the booker was in Atlanta called you up. Like for myself, from AWA, NWA in Kansas City, Ola Anderson was the booker, and Magnum TA and Jody Hamilton were the underneath agents. So those were the ones that communicated with me to see if I wanted to do some business here in Atlanta with WCW, and here we are today.
Okay, cool. Now, what's also cool is that we talk about your time in WCW, and you have been blessed to have an opportunity to work with some really, really good talent up close and personal. Because we can't talk about
Yeah,
Kansas City without talking about Harley Race. And you had
no
a
doubt
chance to
about it.
work with Mr. Harley Race. Harley Race, God rest his soul, one of the greatest world champions, not just NWA, but world champions in the history of professional wrestling. Harley Race
The
took his
best.
world championship experience and managed Lex
That's right.
Luger to the WCW championship that he had been chasing for years. And beyond the
Right.
partnership with Lex Luger, if I'm not mistaken, did you do some teaming up with Big Van Vader as well?
Yes, I did. And before I get to that point, let me let me elaborate a little bit on
Okay.
Harley Race. Okay, remember I said it was him and Rufus R. Jones that had that match, and that made me want to be a wrestler. On top of all that, if it wasn't for Harley Race, I wouldn't have got into wrestling. Period. If it wasn't for Harley Race, you wouldn't see Mr. Hughes here. Because when I seen Harley, I wanted to wrestle like him. I wanted to meet him, the whole 9 yards. When I got into business and I started my career in Kansas City, Geigel, after Harley Race did his run and he went to WWF, and they branded him as the King, Harley Race. Then he got
Mhm.
hurt. He had to come back, have his belly surgery and all that. Well, at that time, I was going through my training. See, and so finally, I got trained, and then Harley came back to Kansas City to buy into the territory with Bob Geigel. See, so he was one of the freaking owners of the
Right.
company, but he was still wrestling. See, and so one day I had a Geigel that called me and they said, "I got a booking for you up in Iowa, right? And you're working Harley Race." I'm going like, "Say what? Excuse me? Say that again." He goes, "You're working Harley Race," and so I'm going like, "Oh no!" So finally, at the time I didn't have a vehicle, I didn't have a car. I didn't know how I was going to get to the gig. I didn't want to ask
Right.
Harley, but I had asked my uncle, one of my
Right.
favorite uncles, Vernon, call him Uncle Jack. And I asked him, I said, "Hey, I got this booking up in Iowa. I don't know how I'm going to get there. You think I can get a ride?" He goes, "Of course, nephew. I love you. I'll give you a ride. It's your career." And so we were on the way because my uncle he's a big wrestling fan.
Hmm.
And he's one of my biggest fans today. And he gave me a ride up to Nebraska. And we talked about wrestling the whole time. I mean, from the time I was little to the present. Anyway, we get to the gig, and I finally get a chance. "Hey, Harley, we already met each other from Kansas City from I say a year, so I knew him already." And so I go and I shake in respect, and we talk about all he said was, "This is what we're gonna do in the finish." That was it. And we went out there and he took me to school. And that's how I train my guys. That's how I teach, man, because that's the best way. You can't sit up here and talk about a match. I'm sorry, I'm going this way. But you can't sit
That's
up there
fine.
and talk about a match for 2 hours and then go out there and expect to have a classic. It doesn't work that way. So with
Right.
Harley, he said, hey, this is what the finish is going to be. Figure four leg lock. That was his finish. Or a pile driver. He said, depending on how I feel. That's what he said. Depending on how I feel, either I give you a pile driver or I give you the figure four leg lock, whatever. I said, yes, sir, whatever, sir. And so I went and sat back down until it was time for us to go out there and have our match. Let me tell you something. When I walked out there and got in that ring and started my match with that guy, that was the most I learned through the whole training process in Kansas City. And let me tell you something. The whole time I'm sitting in the dressing room, I'm sitting there pinching myself, see? Because I'm going like, I'm wrestling the freaking guy that got me interested in the game. How good is that? How good God is to bless me like that. And I'll tell you something. I tell my students all the time. I pray for every last one of them to be successful. If they like me or dislike me, it doesn't matter. I still pray for you because it's really important to me. When I train people, I want all of them to make it. Period.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you talk about wrestling a veteran. I think it was the first. It was either the second or third year of my career when I met you for the first time. I had been wrestling for the Future Wrestling Federation in Covington, Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew you were going to be at the show. I just didn't know when I would meet you. So when I walked in the door, a lot of times I've been on shows with veterans, and a lot of times they're all shuttled away and out of the locker room. They got their own little private locker room. I walked in the door, and you were in the ring training guys, and I'm like, wow,
Mm-hmm.
that's awesome. And so my story with you, because is you probably don't remember, but I can recollect, and I'll tell you what happened. I walked in the door, and there were about three guys in the ring that you were, going over moves with. And I knew most of them, and all of us were pretty green. All of us had probably about maybe a year or two in the business, and we were all learning. So you were training the guys, and I went and put my bag in the locker room, and I came back out, and I jumped in the ring, and I started doing stuff, and you were showing me how to do little things like how to uh instead of going when you go for a collar and elbow tie up to jump right into a top wrist lock, and you showed the guy that was working with me how to go behind and do certain things and how to be uh, snug on your lockups and all that kind of stuff. When we did that, you told me I was a quick learner, and because of
Yeah.
that, I got a chance to wrestle you that night. And so when I wrestled you, the same thing you told me that Harley did with you did with me,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
you made me look like $1,000,000. You really did. Now, on the
Yeah.
flip side, I've always been grateful for that, because I
Mm-hmm.
had that experience with you. On the flip side, I that wrestling you was the best experience I had wrestling a big league veteran. Um,
Mm-hmm.
on the flip side, not to talk about another guy who's a veteran, but really didn't do a whole lot of big league stuff, and that was a guy who wrestled in the Pacific Northwest by the name of Carl Styles.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I had a chance to wrestle him, and it was probably one of the worst matches I've ever had because he was super rigid. He didn't want to do
Mm-hmm.
anything, and he wanted to just
Yeah.
basically he didn't want to give anything, and
Mm-hmm.
it was just a bad experience. I was happy that it was over with when it was done.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Yeah.
say all that to ask you this question:
Mm-hmm.
before you got to superstar status in professional wrestling, was there anybody that you wrestled growing up or paid
Mm-hmm.
attention to while you were a fan of wrestling that when you got into the ring with them, it was a letdown?
I'll tell you, I was pretty blessed that I didn't go through that. I'm just being honest. I didn't have to go
Mhm.
through that because back then, wrestling was pretty sacred to get in. It's like mafia, man. They don't tell you the ropes until you in it. You understand? And so
Absolutely.
back then, when you came to train, or if you wanted to be a wrestler, there's things that they did to see if they could wean you out to make sure that you wasn't just some mark trying to figure out how the game is played. See,
Right.
and so back then, when guys would come in to want to be a wrestler, they would do certain things to you to see if you would come back tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And they tried it with me, but hey, like I said earlier, Professional wrestling is what I wanted to do, period. So there was nothing that was going to stop me, bar from the roof falling in, that was going to stop me from being a professional wrestler. Now, there was this big guy. I said his name was Steve Ray, not the one in Houston, not the Harlem Heat. I'm talking
Yeah.
about Steve Ray. He's a white guy, big guy,
Yeah.
and
I know
so
Steven.
that's the guy. That's the guy that they would use to wean people out,
Mm.
because he would hurt them. See, he was a big old dude. He weighed about 3 something. And he would get you in there, man, and he would just squash you and squeeze you and just, he was real snug with you. Because if you ain't a wrestler and you don't know nothing about being snug, then you'd be like, man, wrestling is real. Man, wrestling is tough.
Right.
And so you would, as the days went on, you would see people start to fall off, see? And they wouldn't come back. And so once the people that he knew they were going to stay, then he started teaching it, see? And that's what's wrong with the business today, in my opinion. You got, Junior over here, and you guys go to the honky tonk and have a couple of Kool-Aids, and you have too much Kool-Aid. The next thing you know, the guy that's drinking all the Kool-Aid is going to ask his buddy that's a wrestler, hey, bro, you think he can train me? And the guy don't know nothing. He ain't been nowhere. He ain't been to the top. He ain't been to no companies. He just been on the indie scene and in the gym. So if you're that way, you can't teach anybody anything. Myself personally, I've been in the business over 30 years. I've been with all the major companies. I've worked with the best. I've wrestled with the best. I've dealt with thousands and thousands of promoters. I've wrestled thousands and thousands of superstars. I've been all over this planet numerous amount of times. So I picked up a lot of wisdom and knowledge about the game of professional wrestling. So I have a lot to offer when a person comes to me to want to train them. They gonna learn from the best. They gonna learn everything that I have in my arsenal to give them, so they can get a job in wrestling. My thing ain't to just train you to be no weekend warrior. My thing is to train you to be the best, and watch you walk down that aisle on WWF/WWE, Impact, Ring of Honor, AEW, all the companies, bro. And because right now I got students in all the companies, the major
Yeah.
companies right now.
That's right.
I'm talking
That's right.
all of them, okay? And the reason why those guys are there, because they got taught right. They got taught how to do respect in the dressing room. They got taught how to do psychology in that ring. They got taught how to do business. They got taught everything. So they're not lost. There's a lot of young people out there in the wrestling business that are lost. You hear me? There are
Hmm.
people out there that so-called open up a wrestling school and take your money. They don't teach you
Ooh,
anything. I
preach.
done had students that
Preach.
come from other facilities, you want to call
Mm.
it, right? Pay $2,000 or $3,000 cash money, man. And they came from somewhere else. And I get them in the ring, because back then, a few years ago, the owner, he was only charging 990 big ones, okay, to get
Hmm.
trained by yours truly, see? But here's the deal. When I first started training, even though I was a good wrestler and I've been in the business for a long, long time, I had to learn myself. I had to structure how to put it together on how to teach people to wrestle the right way. Now, my whole curriculum was going to be old school style professional wrestling, the thing that got us to this point here today. The old school style of wrestling, not a video game style wrestling. People don't watch that stuff. I travel a lot and I run across fans all the time. And they say, man, I don't watch it no more. Why? Because it's garbage. And I'm not afraid to say that. Today's wrestling is total garbage. Jim Ross said it. I'm going to say it too. And there's a lot of old timers that say it just like I do. That's why we
Hmm.
don't watch it no more. The only time I watch it is when one of my guys or girls is on television.
Right.
And after that, I'll click it off. Period. Okay. And so,
Mhm.
with that said, going back to your question of the differences, I guess you said, right? About, boy, I'm going way back, right?
Oh,
That you said about
please go right ahead.
companies,
Yeah, go ahead.
you know, uh, uh, you know, WCW, because AWA they were done. They knew they were done.
Right.
Even though they had a following in Minnesota, but they realized that they couldn't compete with WWF and WCW. See, because those were the freaking cash cows of money They had money in the bank. They had all the best talent because it was like Vince. They were taking talent from all these independent show companies. That's how Vince got over and got all the stars. You was a good
Yep.
champion at AWA. Well, we're going to take you. Or if you're a good company in this company, well, we're going to take you. And then next thing you know, he's got the monopoly on everything. See?
Right.
And then all of a sudden, all these small territories started dwindling away, and all you had was WWF and WCW. And then that was the place to go if you wanted to make a living. If you had a family, home, cars, whatever, you had bills to pay. So the indies wouldn't have covered all your bills like it used to do. See, back
Right.
in the day, you could get on the road, man, and be on the road for 6 months and send money home and pay all your bills. See,
Hmm.
but nowadays in the indie scene, brother, you starve to death.
Oh
See,
God, tell the
but
truth.
but
Tell the truth.
yeah, yeah. So that's why everybody tried to get to the big time. And when I got my first break in Atlanta, Georgia, with TBS, I got a call from Jody Hamilton. He had called me. Now this is a funny story. He had called me and he goes, "Hey, how you doing, Curtis? This is Jody, WCW. Ole wanted me to give you a call. Interested in doing some business with you. We like the way you perform. You're a great looking athlete. We was thinking about bringing you up to Atlanta, work an angle with Lex Luger. Because me and Luger had the same finish maneuver, which was the torture rack, see?
Right.
And so they were looking for somebody to work with Luger. Now, I used to watch Luger in my early days in NWA Kansas City. And he was a jacked up dude. I mean, he looked like he was chiseled out of stone.
Right.
And he was bigger than life. I mean, he was he was like Flair, he was like Harley. And
Hmm.
so when they called me and said, "Hey, we want you to run an angle with Luger, we're gonna do torture rack matches. We want to know how much you want to charge to come up here and work for us to do this." I'm going like, now this is my first big time call. You follow me? In AWA, I was just making $150
Right.
just for that TV taping that we did. We did about 2 or 3 tapings a night, and then you got your money, and then you went back home. So that really was no big money. That was like
Right.
working at freaking parties or something, right? Anyway, I so I'm sitting there. I'm going. He asked me what they're gonna charge me, how much I'll charge to come up to work this angle. Well, hell, I've never negotiated like that before. So I'm going like, well, I'm kind of stalling because I'm waiting for him to say a number. See, I'm sitting there going, well, and then he throws out this number. It's like, yeah, how about we give you 300 a night, 400 a night? I'm going, okay. That was no debate about it. I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And so he goes, all right, we're going to set everything up and, get your address and your plane ticket, blah, 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 blah. Did all that. And I flew up here, been here ever since. And we got on the road and we started doing our thing. Well, at first, they brought me in and started feeding me people. So I can get on TV and get folks used to Big Cat. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I was doing my thing, drop kicks, doing my thing. And people were real impressed on the way I was doing my thing. Big old dude doing drop kicks and to the head, and I mean taking big time bumps. I mean, I was doing my thing. I was a young guy, full of energy and strong. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
so
Right.
and so once that's why they brought me in, because they saw me doing my thing in AWA, saw that I had the same finish as Luger. They were looking for somebody to work Luger. Here was this big black dude that can do all these things, and they brought me in. They fed me enhancement people. Back then they called them jobbers. So enhancement makes the people feel better, I guess. But they still had to do jobs. I mean, I did jobs. I did a lot of them. I
Right.
don't have nothing against jobs, okay, because that's how you pay your dues. But
Absolutely.
there's something in this business where it's called overkill jobs, okay,
Mm.
which when I train my guys, I teach them how to protect themselves. I tell them protect yourself, and then I tell them why. I'm not going to tell it on here because that's a secret between me and them. And so
Absolutely.
when I train them and they go out in the world to do their thing, to make their living, to make their mark in professional wrestling. They already implanted in their mind. I put it there to always protect yourself. That's what Geico told me. That's what Sonny told me. Sonny Myers is another guy that had a hand in training me too. Said protect yourself. Don't let them misuse you. Don't let them hurt your career. It's okay to do jobs. Okay. I had an incident here happened a couple of weeks ago. One of my students, his name is SP the Ghost, and he's he's trying to get a job in AEW. There's a few of them trying to get a job in AEW,
Right.
and this guy over there, QT Marshall, he runs the school over there, and he has something to do with hiring the people, students or talent. Let's put it that
Right.
way. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of my guys go over there already trained. They're ready to rock and roll.
Right.
They don't need no more teaching. So they're ready to rock and roll. Okay. And so they go over there expecting that they're going to get a tryout. They're going to get a look see the whole 9 yards. I told my guys, this is how a tryout works. If a person calls you and they say, hey, man, we like the way you work. We like your gimmick. We like your character. We want to take a look at you. Could you come on up in such and such a day at such and such a time? And you say, of course I could do that. Then you go there expecting to get a tryout and a look see, and then everything turns around and they job the hell out of you. Well, I
Yep.
was not happy in the way they treated SP the Ghost. I wasn't. Now, like I said earlier, I did jobs too,
Right.
right? Got to did 1, 2, 3s, did all kinds of stuff. But I never have did or have done 10 body slams in a row to get a damn job. Never in my life. I was so upset. It's on freaking AEW on freaking YouTube. You can check it out.
Yeah.
But he has a different
Mm-hmm.
name, and he wears paint. So I told him, I was like, "Thank God you didn't wear your paint."
Right.
Well,
Mm-hmm. I saw the match.
I'm not afraid of. Now I'm not afraid of no man. So I hit up QT. I got his phone number. So I hit him up. All right, and I'm letting him know that I'm 38 hot about the way he treated my guy. I
Right.
was like, this kid is talented. He has a character. He has a gimmick already. Why didn't you use his gimmick? Why you make him take his paint off and go over there and do a freaking job, man? 10 times body slam? Come on now. That's called overkill enhancement, my friend. And
Mm-hmm.
WWF don't even make you do that. Impact don't make you do that. Ring of Honor don't make you do that. Only person that does it is QT Marshall because he is a little intimidated by all the stars I've trained. I can tell a hater when I see one. You're going to get my guys and they're going to job them out. I don't give a damn. I'm going to say what I'm going to say because
Oh
I am
wow.
Mr. Hughes. I have paid my dues and I'm training people out there to make it, not to be total jobbers because that kid is talented as you can be. Everybody pretty much I have trained are very talented. It speaks for itself. You can go down the list of all the companies, of all the people I've trained, and all of them are on top. They're all on top, man. From
Yep.
from 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 Apollo Crews down to Kara Hogan, they're all on top at their companies, dude. So why are you gonna take one of my students that's very talented and go out there and humiliate him? That's what you did. You didn't go out there and give him no tryout because if you were going to give him a tryout, you would have said, "Hey man, wear your paint, wear your gear. We want to take a look at you." But instead, that's one of Mr. Hughes guys. Hey, piss on him. Go out there and kill him. But I let him know I'm not down for that. So if you're a freaking promoter out there and you're going to use some of my guys, you're getting talent. So don't dog them out. Period. Now, next subject.
That's what's up. That's what I'm talking about. Now, I don't know how to come back from that, but just to simply ask you about one of the things you are definitely most famous for, and that is your first run with WWE or the WWF as it was known. Um, there was a time where I know that they had you as a butler for Hunter Hearst Helmsley, but that's not what you're most known for. You're known
Right.
for being the man who walked into the ring,
Mm-hmm.
took the Undertaker's urn, and beat
Right.
him over the head with it. Now,
Right.
you were not. Now, this was just before the Attitude Era kicked in, and you returned to WWE during the Attitude Era,
Yeah, I was
alongside
there
Chris
3 times.
Jericho. Right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So now my thing is, a lot of people don't really understand, like as far as business goes, business side of professional wrestling and how WWE was, or the environment of WWE was kind of murky because nobody really has a real good understanding of what business was like during what they call the new generation era of WWE. So having been inside, what would you say was the best part of your experience in WWE during that time? With the
Well, I'll
exception,
tell
I
you
mean,
what,
alongside.
when I
Right.
went in there, I went in 1983. A lot of people probably wasn't born yet watching this thing. But I went in there in 1983. I had left WCW. I went around the world touring and making a living so I can feed my family and eat and survive the whole 9 yards. And when I was here in Atlanta, in WCW, we all party like rock stars and get drugs, party, drink, chase women, you name it. We did it all. But everybody did it. But in this business, there's a lot of haters in this business, bro.
Oh
And if
yeah.
you've been in it, you should know by now. I tell my
Yes.
students that I train that what kind of business this is. It's a cutthroat business. Everybody's not honest. They'll lie to you, stab you in the back. So
Absolutely.
when I was here, we traveling the world and going to different cities and doing drugs. And I'd go to the hood and get the drugs and bring them back for the boys, and we all have a good time. Well, there were haters in the group. And so somebody didn't want me to excel. Somebody didn't want me to make it as big as they were, I guess. And so, you know, they have stooges in the wrestling game.
Hmm.
Stooges that, oh, I'm gonna tell on him. That's what it means. You tell on somebody. Well, hell, he's getting too hot. I need to go slow him down. Let me go stooge to the boss man about it. Right?
Hmm.
Well, they were doing that to me. Said, "Oh, Mr. Hughes is on drugs, and he's all strung out, and he's this and he's that." Let me tell you something on my mama, brother. I was not strung out. I was not hooked on anything. I did it because I made a ton of money, and out of freaking Kansas City, all of a sudden I'm making all this bread that I never seen in my life. So I'm enjoying the rock star life, brother. That's what I was doing, and everybody else was doing it. But we had haters in the game. So that information went on up to Vince McMahon, WWF. Hey, man, how's this Curtis guy? Oh, man, you don't want to use him. He's on drugs. He is really bad. But so Vince calls me. Secretary calls me one day. No, let me rephrase. I sent them a package, like everybody does, because I wanted to work. Everybody wants to work with WWF. So I sent them a
Hmm.
package, and I knew Sergeant Slaughter. I knew him from
Right.
the AWA days. And
Right.
so I knew Sarge. So I sent him a package, and apparently they looked it over. They knew who I was. Now, this is the first time that I was denied. And they sent me a letter,
Hmm.
right? They said, well, we're not interested right now. And then they had a note in there to call the office. I called the office, and I spoke with Vince, and he goes, here's the problem. When you were in WCW, they say you had this drug problem, Mr. Curtis. Is that true? I'm going like, no, sir, it's not.
Right.
He goes, well, right now, we're going to hold off on you for another 6 months and we'll get back with you. I was like, God damn it. So I said, I had no problem. So I started touring, going to Japan, going to New Zealand, going to Hawaii, going everywhere I could possibly go to keep the bills paid, keep lights on, see? And so one day I was going back, started going back and forth to Puerto Rico, wrestling Carlos Colon and the Invader, the one that killed Brody, bleeding every night. I hated it because my shirts would get just filled with blood, and I have to soak them and then wash them in the washing machine every
I
night.
saw the picture. I saw the picture. You and Carlos Colon wrestling, man.
Yeah, man, and did that all the time. Well, anyway, one day I was on one of my Puerto Rican tours,
Mm.
and I get a call. I go to my room after a gig, and you hotel, they got the flashlight, you got a message on the phone there. So my
Right.
phone is flashing, that indicating that I have a message. So I pick the phone up and I hit the zero button to call the operator. I said, yeah, how do I retrieve my messages? And she told me, and I clicked on the button to get my messages, and on the other end of the message was Sergeant Slaughter. He goes, hey, Curtis, this is Sarge. How you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Hey, get back with me when you get this message. Here's the phone number. So I called him back. And he goes, "Hey, what's up, Curtis?" I said, "Hey, what's up?" He goes, "Where you at?" I said, "Well, I'm over here in Puerto Rico. I'm just finishing up, though. I'll be leaving on the plane in the morning, heading back to Georgia." He goes, "Well, I got some good news for you. Vince won't take a look at you. Are you going to be available such and such a date down in Augusta, Georgia?" I said, "Oh, yeah, I'll be available." He goes, "Well, bring your stuff. Bring your gear. Bring your gimmick." "Yes, sir. Be there. Thank you for calling. Appreciate the call." Hang up, and I'll tell you what, I praised the Lord. I called my mama. I called everybody that I know I could call and tell them the great news. Then I thanked the good Lord for the blessing.
Right.
With that said, got back home. The time came to go to Augusta.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I prayed about it before I left my house, about giving me favor about the gig. I get down there, and I walk in. I meet J.J. Dillon. He was the head booker at the time.
Uh-huh.
And then he says, "Vince wants to talk with you." And at every arena, you know, Vince has an office set up. And so I went into Vince's office, shook his hand, met him. You know, "Great to have you here. We're gonna take a look at you tonight. Everything worked out. We could do some business." So I said, "All right, great." And so this is a shoot story. So as I'm in the dressing room, I'm asking the guys that already been there. I ain't gonna say no names because you know every last
Right.
one of them. But while I'm in the dressing room, I'm asking them, "Hey guys, what do I need to do out there, you know, to get a gig, you know, to get the gig?" Well, they were saying, "Well, Curtis, you know, you need to go out there. If they give you a jobber, you know, you got to bump for the jobber, you got to sell for the jobber." All that's nonsense. But like I said earlier, my trainer told me to always protect myself. So he said that was in my mind right off the bat. I said, "Oh, that's what he's talking about." So anyway, long story short, I go get ready to go do my thing. I go to the grill position, and the person at the grill position said, "All right, go for it, do your thing." So I walk out there. I'm in character, you know, got the shades on, got my gimmick, got the hat, got the whole 9 yards, frowning. And I'm walking through the ring, and these people can't make it what the hell they saying here, see? So once I get in the ring, I start doing my thing. I shoot the guy in, give him some drop kicks to the head, power slam, all that big man stuff. 1, 2, 3, boom. I leave, go back. "All right, we got another one for you." Go back out there, do another match. Boom. Do the same damn thing, change it up a little bit. Go in the back. "Okay, go get dressed. Vince will meet with you." So I go in the dressing room, and mind you, I told those guys how to get a gig, right?
Right.
Remember they said, you know, bump. I said the bump. They say bump for the jobber, sell for the jobber. So now I go back. I go back in the dressing room. This is before they told me to get dressed and come back. Because I went in and put my clothes back on, see, because I thought my night was over. But then Vince had him call me back to his office. He goes, "Hey, we like what we see. So we're gonna go ahead and just start using you. So we're gonna start getting some TV papers under our belt of you. So go put your stuff back on, right?" And
Wow.
so I went back in the dressing room, and I get my bag, and I unzip it, and I start pulling up my gear. Now some of those guys are still in the dressing room, and they go, "What you doing, Cat?" I'm going like, "Well, Vince told me to come back in here and put my stuff on. They're gonna do some TV tapings of me tonight." And so they go, "What?" They all look surprised because they never seen that happen before. And
Right.
so I'm putting my stuff on. I get all my gear on before I get ready to go out there. And I say, "So does that mean you think I got a job?" And walk out. That's a true story.
Wow. That's what's up,
Yeah,
man. That is so awesome.
yeah,
Man, just the
right.
wow, just the
And
places
so,
you've been.
right, exactly. So with the question that you asked, I mean, when you tell me, ask me something, I'm gonna tell you the story behind it.
Hey, I
And
like
so,
stories.
so that's
I love
how
hearing
I got
stories.
in there. And so once I got my run, started running, we was on the road doing our thing, you know, they pushing the hell out of me all over the country, all over the planet.
Right.
Just push, 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 push. And at the time, Elegante was running this angle with the Undertaker, see, but it wasn't drawing no money. It wasn't getting over. The people wasn't buying it, right? So he needed to find somebody else, another bad SOB heel to stick with the Undertaker. And so one day, out of the blue, he says, "Curtis, come here for a second." Pulls me in his office. He goes, "Tonight, it's going to be your night." I'm going, oh, I must go get ready to get the heavyweight title in my head. I'm just tripping, right? And so he
Right.
goes, tonight, you're going to lay out Paul Bearer and The Undertaker. You're going to take that urn and you're going to walk around the country with it. You're going to steal it. And I'm going looking around like, fireworks will go off, and horns and everything else, like this is the biggest rib of all, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so he's telling me all this. I'm going like, I'm saying to myself, you got to be ribbing me, man. And I was like, excuse me, sir, say that again. He goes, tonight, you're going to go out there, you're going to, had it all set up, telling me. The way it happened, you see that it's on film. I post it all the time. That's how he told me it, how it was going to be. And that's the way I did it. But when I got that urn and I hit it the first time, it flew out of the ring, see? And I was
Yeah.
like, oh, damn. And then good thing Harvey ran over there to get it and handed it back to me
Right.
so I could continue beating him down. Now, when I started beating him down, he was telling me harder, harder, faster, faster. Because I was trying to, because before that urn, I got it. It didn't have no dents in it. Those some
Right.
shoot dents that's in that urn, man. Because Undertaker was telling me, hit me harder, bro, hit me harder. Because I didn't want to give him no color because the dead men don't bleed. So I didn't want to give him no color.
Right.
But he kept telling me to hit him and hit him. And let me tell you something. The whole time that was going on, my butthole was puckering like crazy. I was surprised I didn't pass out. That's how nervous I was. And then at that, Benson said, hold up and pray, walk around, parade around the freaking ring. People was like, with their mouth closed, wide open, because they never seen that happen. And so
Right.
that was the biggest start of my WWF career right there when I took that urn. And then we went around the world doing casket matches, which was great. Sold out every freaking time we did a casket match in WWF. We sold that baby out. 20,000 seaters, man. So I tell people, if you ain't never worked in front of 20,000 people, you ain't made it yet. Or if you ain't worked at the Garden, you ain't made it yet. You
Right.
understand? But that's the goal when you become a professional wrestler, is to perform in front of those type of fans, lots of
Mm-hmm.
them. But if you want people to believe and follow you, you got to look legit without hurting one another. That's why when people come and I train them, I teach them psychology. I
Mm-hmm.
teach them how to work a crowd, how to work holds, the whole 9 yards. Because if you're not taught these things, you're not going to be successful in professional wrestling longevity wise. Period.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, I got time for one more question, and I
Still
really
with me?
want to ask you this. Can you hear me?
Uh-oh.
You good?
Lost the sound there.
Okay. You got me? Can you hear me?
Hello. Oh,
Hello?
man.
Hello? Oh man. Let's see. You still can't hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Barely. Hot dog it. I can't hear you barely. I lost my audio some kind of way. It's
Okay.
here.
You- Can you hear me at all? Can you hear me at all?
Shoot. Hang on. Let me do something real quick.
Okay. All
Let me
right.
go back to this. Oh, where we at? There?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay, still can't hear nothing. Damn it. Hello.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. This was going pretty good till that happened. Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah.
Damn it. Great.
Uh well, we'll figure it out. We'll figure out what we need to do. Unfortunately, we have technical difficulties as a result of some things going on, but I guess maybe this is a segue to kind of exit the interview, I hate to do it this way, but I like to take this opportunity to say thank you to Mr. Hughes for being my guest tonight. Um, eh, the time I did spend with him was very insightful, and I did have one more question to ask him, but I'll bring him on at a later date, or maybe he and I can get together and we can actually have this interview face to face to kind of kill all the technical difficulties and stuff that are going on. But what I will say is this: I want to thank Mr. Hughes for being my guest here tonight on Thespian Works. I want to thank you guys for joining me. As you know, this will be on thespianworks.com. The audio version of this will also be on Spotify and other audio streaming services as well. And plus, you can catch this episode of Thespian Works on the King Network. So until next time, everybody, remember the three things I always tell you: life is short, death is certain. Wow, I'm tripping, man. This is crazy. This is so crazy. It's been a while. It's been a while since I've done this. Okay, life is short, death is certain, and be sure to love on the people God gives you, because one day He gonna want them back. All right. Anthony Velvet Hall, and this is Thespian Works. Thank you guys so much, and have a great night.